Hi everybody, welcome to an Intro to Poetry, a virtual curriculum made for ages 6+ with interns for good. So before we begin, you will need a pencil, colored pencils, pens, or crayons, and a paper or a notebook. So what is poetry? Poetry is really just a type of literature that conveys beauty, feelings, or ideas. They're usually shorter than an actual book. There's a video that describes poetry here, which you can watch later if you're still confused on what is poetry. Some words to know before we begin is rhyme. If words rhyme, it means they sound the same. For example, old and cold, but they don't have to be spelled the same to rhyme. For example, hot and fought. Syllables. A word can have 1, 2, 3, or more syllables. We can clap as we say the word to find out how many syllables the word has. Red is 1 clap. Purple is 2 claps. 2 claps is 2 syllables. 1 clap is 1 syllable. Now you try. How many syllables are in happy? Happy. Did you get 2 syllables? That's correct. Adjectives describe words. Examples of adjectives are hot, cold, happy, sad, hungry, thirsty, angry, embarrassed, scared, etc. Can you think of your own adjectives? Maybe young and old. A noun is a person, place, thing, or idea. Example, George Washington, the pool, light bulb, book, curious George, etc. Let's look at our first type of poem. Cats. Cuddly, acrobatic, tenacious, softly purring. You might not know what acrobatic and tenacious mean, but that's okay because we can use much simpler words to make this type of poem. I almost said it, but what type of poem is this called? If you're wondering, it's called an acrostic poem. An acrostic poem is a type of word where the first letter of each line spells out a word. The lines can be any amount of words and are usually adjectives or nouns. It's sometimes called a fill-in-the-blank poem. Do they have to rhyme? No, it's a really simple type of poem. Now you should try. You can use the template on the right to create your own acrostic poem with the word July. If you can't think of a word or sentence, come back and fill it in at the end. Try writing each letter in a different color. And for an extra challenge, do this with your name. You can pause this video to give yourself more time to write the poem. Let's look at our second type of poem. I cannot go to school today, said little Peggy Ann McKay. I have the measles and the mumps, a gash, a rash, and purple bumps. These are poems by Shel Silverstein. These are actually 2 different poems. Do you know what type of poems these are? They're called couplets. A couplet is a type of poem that consists of 2 lines that rhyme and have the same amount of syllables. This means the poem can have any even number of lines, 2, 4, 6, 8, and more. Now you try. Try writing a couplet. It's really simple, just find 2 rhyming words. And if you get stuck, here's some rhyming words on the right. Bug and rug, pig and wig, mop and hop, knit and sit, bed and red, bat and mat. You can pause this video to give yourself more time to write the poem. Let's look at our third type of poem. There once was a loony old goat who wanted to sail on a boat across the 7 seas with a crew of trained fleas while wearing a long captain's coat. We can see the picture of the goofy old goat here. Do you know what type of poem this is? It's a poem called a limerick. A limerick is a type of rhyming poem with 5 lines and the same amount of syllables in each line. Now, which words rhyme? Goat rhymes with boat, which also rhymes with coat. So lines 1, 2, and 5 all rhyme. Seas rhymes with fleas, so lines 3 and 4 also rhyme. Goat sounds the same as boat, and sounds the same as coat, and seas sounds the same as fleas. So if we give an A to the ones that rhyme, and a B to the other ones that rhyme, we get a pattern that's A, B, B, A. Goat A, boat A, sees B, flees B, coat A. Does that make sense? A, B, B, A. That's the pattern of our limerick. There are many different patterns of a limerick, but this is the one that we'll be trying. Also, lines 1, 2, and 5 all have 8 syllables. You can play the clapping game to figure this out. There once was a loony old goat, 8 syllables, who wanted to sail on a boat, 6 syllables. The lines that end with rhyming words must have the same number of syllables in that line. 8, 8, 6, 6, 8. A, B, B, A. Does that make sense? Now you can try writing your own limerick. You'll need 3 words that rhyme and 2 separate words that rhyme. Make sure the rhyming lines have the same number of syllables. And if you're stuck, try the word stew. What rhymes with stew? Do, grew, shoe, brew, and more. You can pause this video to give yourself more time to write the poem. Let's look at our last type of poem. This poem is called Trees. Shade in the summer, branches swaying in the wind, the place birds call home. What kind of pattern does this poem have? Does it have a pattern? It does. This type of poem is called a haiku. A haiku is a poem with 3 lines. The first and last lines are 5 syllables, and the second line is 7 syllables. The poems are usually about nature. What's nature? Anything outside, basically. Sun, trees, leaves, bushes, insects, bugs, rabbits, animals, and more. Do the lines have to rhyme? No, and they usually don't rhyme. We can see in this poem how shade in the summer is 5 syllables and branches swaying in the wind is 7 syllables. The place birds call home is 5, so 5, 7, 5. Now you try. You can draw a circle to help you write your haiku like the one on the right. Try writing your own haiku. Remember that it has to be a 5-7-5 syllable pattern, and it should be about nature. If you get stuck on the syllables, clap the words out or pick smaller words. And if you get stuck on nature, try writing about flowers, leaves, or sunshine. You can pause this video to give yourself more time to write the poem. Congratulations, you just wrote 4 original poems. To review, you wrote an acrostic, a couplet, a limerick, and a haiku. How exciting! And before we finish, let's learn a little bit about some famous poets. We read a poem by Shel Silverstein, but he's a very famous children's cartoon and poem writer, and his most famous poem book is called A Light in the Attic. His poems are short and funny, and they're for kids, just like you. Robert Frost is another famous American poet. His most famous poems are The Road Not Taken and Stopping by the Woods on a Snowy Evening by Robert Frost. A very, very famous one is William Shakespeare. He's written several books that are really just compilations of poetry. Some of his most famous books are Romeo and Juliet, Hamlet, and Macbeth. You will likely read at least one of his books in your lifetime, and you may find out that they're just collections of poetry. There's so many more poets, and if you're interested in learning more about them, you should go to the additional resources page here. Here's a poetry craft idea, and you can pause this video to look at it. But it's basically a poet tree. It's going to be a tree made out of a brown paper bag with little poems attached to it written by you. It's an exciting craft if you're bored at home or need something to do, or you want to practice your poetry skills. That's all for this lesson, guys. And here are some additional resources if you need to practice your rhyming or your poems. And if you didn't finish the poems in the lesson, go back and you should do those because those are really good practice. There's also more poetry projects and poem ideas here. Thank you so much for joining me. My name is Sachi and I'm 17 and I live in Arizona. And I love writing poetry too, and I love reading books and painting. So Thank you all for joining me, and please go to the additional resources page if you're interested in learning more about poetry. Also, go back through this video and you can dive more into the topics. Thank you all. Bye.